Welcome back, brave listener. This is part 5, the final part, of The White People by Arthur Machen. The Green Book is behind us. Now we return to the beginning, to the conversation that opened the story. The same voices, the same ideas, but no longer carry the same meaning. We have come, in a way, full circle. Listen closely to what is said, but closer to what is left unsaid. Here comes The White People epilogue, written by a true maestro in the folk horror genre, Arthur Machen. Gather round. The White People, Part 5, written by Arthur Machen, performed for you by Jonathan Dunn. Original year of publication 1904. This work is in the public domain. Production and narration copyright 2026, Jonathan Dunn. Epilogue. "That's a very queer story," said Cotgrave, handing back the Green Book to the recluse, Ambrose. "I see the drift of a good deal, but there are many things that I do not grasp at all. On the last page, for example, what does she mean by nymphs?" "Well, I think there are references throughout the manuscript to certain processes which have been handed down by tradition from age to age. Some of these processes are just beginning to come within the purview of science, which has arrived at them, rather at the steps which lead to them, by quite different paths. I have interpreted the reference to nymphs as a reference to one of these processes." "And you believe that there are such things?" "Oh, I think so. Yes, I believe I could give you convincing evidence on that point. I'm afraid you have neglected the study of alchemy. It is a pity, for the symbolism at all events is very beautiful. And moreover, if you are acquainted with certain books on the subject, I could recall to your mind phrases which might explain a good deal in the manuscript that you have been reading." "Yes, but I want to know whether you seriously think that there is any foundation of fact between these fancies. Is it not all a department of poetry? A curious dream with which man has indulged himself? I can only say that it is no doubt better for the great mass of people to dismiss it all as a dream. But if you ask my veritable belief, that goes quite the other way. No, I should not say belief, but rather knowledge. I might tell you that I have known cases in which men have stumbled quite by accident on certain of these processes, and have been astonished by wholly unexpected results. In the cases I am thinking of, there could have been no possibility of suggestion or subconscious action of any kind. One might as well suppose a schoolboy suggesting the existence of Aeschylus to himself while he plods mechanically through the declensions. But you have noticed the obscurity," Ambrose went on. "And in this particular case it must have been dictated by instinct, since the writer never thought that her manuscripts would fall into other hands. But the practice is universal, and for most excellent reasons. Powerful and sovereign medicines, which are of necessity virulent poisons also, are kept in a locked cabinet. The child may find the key by chance and drink herself dead. But in most cases the search is educational, and the phials contain precious elixirs for him who has patiently fashioned the key for himself." "You do not care to go into details?" "No, frankly I do not. You must remain unconvinced. But you saw how the manuscript illustrates the talk we had last week. Is this girl still alive?" "No, I was one of those who found her. I knew the father well. He was a lawyer, and had always left her very much to herself. He thought of nothing but deeds and leases, and the news came to him as an awful surprise. She was missing one morning. I suppose it was about a year after she had written what you have read. The servants were called, and they told things, and put the only natural interpretation on them, a perfectly erroneous one. They discovered that Green Book somewhere in her room, and I found her in the place that she described with so much dread, lying on the ground before the image." "It was an image?" "Yes, it was hidden by the thorns and the thick undergrowth that had surrounded it. It was wild, lonely country, but you know what it was like by her description, though of course you will understand that the colours have been heightened. child's imagination always makes the heights higher and the depths deeper than they really are. And she had, unfortunately for herself, something more than imagination. One might say, perhaps, that the picture in her mind, which she succeeded in a measure in putting into words, was the scene as it would have appeared to an imaginative artist. But it is a strange, desolate land. And she was dead? Yes. She had poisoned herself. In time. No, there was not a word to be said against her in the ordinary sense. You may recollect a story I told you the other night about a lady who saw her child's fingers crushed by a window. And what was this statue? Well, it was of Roman workmanship, of a stone that with the centuries had not blackened but had become white and luminous. The thicket had grown up about it and concealed it. And in the Middle Ages, the followers of a very old tradition had known how to use it for their own purposes. In fact, it had been incorporated into the monstrous mythology of the Sabbath. You will have noted that those to whom a sight of that shining whiteness had been vouchsafed by chance, or rather perhaps by apparent chance, were required to blindfold themselves on their second approach. That is very significant. And is it there still? I sent for tools and we hammered it into dust and fragments. The persistence of tradition never surprises me. Ambrose went on after a pause. I could name many an English parish where such traditions as that girl had listened to in her childhood are still existent in occult but unabated vigor. No, for me it is this story, not the sequel, which is strange and awful, for I have always believed that wonder is of the soul. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of The White People by Arthur Machen. We're back where we started. The same conversation about evil. But it doesn't sound the same anymore. We've read the Green Book. We've seen what happened to the girl. We're not told exactly how it ended for her, but we know it didn't end well. The nurse is gone. The girl is gone too. But whatever was passed on between them didn't end there. And I suppose in a way we now all carry a little of the nurse in us. This is Timeless Terrors number 134. Until we meet again in the next story. And don't forget, we're not afraid of the darkness. We're afraid of what's in it. Good night. This has been The White People, Part 5, written by Arthur Machen. Performed for you by Jonathan Dunn. Original year of publication 1904. This work is in the public domain. Production and narration copyright 2026. Jonathan Dunn.